Hey, what's up guys, Benny here and welcome to Xbox On. Now, with E3 kicking off in less than 2 weeks time, I thought it'd be a great time to take a look at what games you'll have to keep an eye out for and everything that you need to know about them, such as betas, release dates and so on, in what is personally my favorite game genre, the shooters. Now, this is a game that was only revealed a couple of days ago and will be coming out in February 2018, so we can be sure that we're going to get a ton of new information at Ubisoft's conference at E3, and that's Far Cry 5. What we know so far about Far Cry 5 is that the game is set in Montana in the United States of America, where you'll be playing as a sheriff deputy who's arrived in Hope County, but discovers that the whole area has been taken over by some doomsday cult, so you'll have to rally the troops and lead the resistance, which was shown off nicely with some small teaser trailers, and help them to destroy the cult known as Eden's Gate. We expect that we'll have a similar gameplay experience to previous Far Cry games, with there being an open world for us to explore, but we'll gain the ability to fly planes and get into dogfights and run away from bears, the usual things that you'd expect to get up to in a Far Cry game. Having explored quite exotic locations in the previous games, I'm really interested to see how shifting to the farmlands of Montana is going to change the series. Having spent an entire game wingsuiting from the top of giant mountains in Far Cry 4, I'm curious to see how Ubisoft turned the plains of Montana into a massive playground. The trailer was also made with the gameplay engine, so we can tell that it's going to look incredible, especially on Project Scorpio. But one of the things that I've got the most excited about with Far Cry 5 is the fact that the game can be played solo or in 2-player co-op, so it'll be interesting to see how they handle the co-op experience compared to previous games. And finally, from what we know so far, you'll also get character customization, meaning you'll be able to play it as a male or female, as well as having many other customization options at your disposal. But I'm sure we'll find much more out come the Ubisoft conference on Monday the 12th of June at E3, so don't miss that one. Now, something that Activision do very well year on year is building up the hype for their new game releases, and this year is no different. With us already having seen 2 major reveals ahead of E3, with us seeing a fairly large chunk of what we can expect to see in Destiny 2, but also a little look at a game that I'm incredibly excited for, Call of Duty World War II. At E3, we're going to get our very first look at World War II's multiplayer gameplay, which is being developed by Sledgehammer Games. Now, the reason why so many people are getting excited for World War II this year is the fact that it's been nearly 10 years since the last Call of Duty game set in the World War II era. So at E3, we can expect to not only get hands-on and see what the multiplayer experience is going to be like in Call of Duty World War II, but we'll also discover what date the beta is going to be, which, going off the Black Ops 3 timeline, will be sometime in August, which is where everyone who isn't at E3 is going to be able to get their hands on with it for the very first time. Now, what we already know is that World War II is going back to basics, or boots on the ground as everyone keeps saying. That means there's not going to be any of the futuristic movement that we've had over the past few years, with there being no ability to wall run or boost jump. We also learned from the live stream earlier in the year that there's going to be a brand new social space called Headquarters. That's going to change how you spend your time whilst you're not in a multiplayer match, with there being new ways to interact, gain recognition, and earn rewards in the game. It sounds a lot like Destiny's Tower, minus the weird alien people. At E3, we'll also likely learn to see some new game modes that'll be coming to the Call of Duty franchise, including the all-new War Mode, which has been described as a new multiplayer experience that immerses players in iconic World War II battles, where the Allied and the Axis forces go head-to-head in team-driven gameplay, fighting over strategic objectives, which I think could be fairly similar to operations in Battlefield 1, which would be absolutely incredible. We'll also most likely get to learn about the new Divisions feature that'll affect your multiplayer progression, where you can choose from being in the infantry or armored division, for example. Sadly, we're unlikely to see much more about the new Zombies mode that Sledgehammer have for World War II, as it'll be saved for a later date, but one thing that we do know is that the game will be coming out on November 3rd, and I just can't wait. Now it's time for a game that needs no introduction, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, in April at the Star Wars Celebration, we got to see our very first look at the brand new Battlefront 2 reveal trailer, which gave us so much to look forward to ahead of E3. But since then, we've learned a little bit more about what to expect from the game come release and what we're likely to see at EA Play at this year's E3 conference. Now, for me personally, one of the things that was missing with the original Star Wars Battlefront was the lack of a single-player campaign. But thankfully, with Battlefront 2, they're going to have a full-blown campaign set between the battles at Endor Forest in The Return of the Jedi to where the story begins in The Force Awakens. Meaning, we'll get to discover a little bit more about some of the major characters in the films, like Kylo Ren, so hopefully, at E3, we'll be able to see one of the campaign missions during the live stream. But one of the most exciting things for every Star Wars fan out there is the fact that this game is going to cover multiple eras of the Star Wars universe. So in multiplayer, we'll be able to control heroes and villains such as Darth Maul and Yoda, but also take control of characters from the newest installment of the Star Wars series, such as Rey and Kylo Ren. Another one of the biggest asks from players from the original Star Wars Battlefront was to have the inclusion of space battles in Battlefront 2, which it looks like DICE have answered with there being a whole segment on the Star Wars Battlefront 2 website dedicated to space battles, where by the sounds of it, we're going to be able to take down huge capital ships in a mode that will likely go along the similar lines of Fighter Squadron from the first Star Wars Battlefront, but with us having core objectives to bring down the ship during a match. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is also going to be introducing class customization for the very first time. Now, the class system has yet to be properly explained, but that is something that we'll definitely be finding out come E3, though we have had a little look at what we can expect thanks to the pre-order poster, meaning that we'll get a variety of different abilities and weapon mods which have different rarities, meaning we'll all have things to earn and unlock during our time with Star Wars Battlefront 2. But one of the more exciting things we'll find more about at E3 is the fact that Star Wars Battlefront 2 is not going to have a season pass for DLC. As Battlefront 2 creative director Berndina recently said, we don't have a season pass. When we looked at the way Battlefront had evolved over its lifetime, with the DLC and everything, we decided, you know what? For this type of game, season passes are not the best thing. We need to come up with something better. So hopefully at E3 we'll find out what that something better is. Another shooter that you're just going to have to stand up and take note of is Destiny 2, and its gameplay reveal earlier in May has done absolutely no harm whatsoever, with players all around the world counting down the days till September 8th to continue their Guardian's journey. Now, if you've not played the original Destiny and had always been put off by the fact that players had almost 3 years of playing the game, so you'd be miles behind if you started now, Destiny 2 is going to be the perfect time to get yourself into one of the biggest games of the decade, as Destiny 2 is offering all players a fresh start, veterans and newcomers alike. The tower has been destroyed by the Red Legion, who are going to be the game's main enemy, though you'll still come across enemies like the Vex across the game's new planets, Titan, Io, Earth, and Nessus. However, as the Red Legion have destroyed the tower, everyone's loot has been destroyed from Destiny 1, so everyone is going to start Destiny 2 in the exact same situation. But as we'll see at E3, Destiny 2 has had an absolute ton of improvements from the original. Firstly, fast travel. How many times in Destiny 1 did you just want to hop into a PvP match in the Crucible or do the weekly Nightfall, but you had to first fly into orbit to be able to do so? Well, now thankfully you can do it from wherever you are, meaning you can get into Destiny 2's activities so much quicker than before, saving precious time. There is also a brand new subclass for each of the Destiny classes, the Dawnblade for the Warlock, who can just fly up and throw down flaming swords towards the enemies, or the Sentinel for the Titan, who allows you to become Captain America and throw your shield at enemies if hitting them in the face doesn't work, and then finally the Arcstrider for the Hunter, who starts doing acrobatics and taking enemies out with his staff. It's going to be hard to decide which of those to try first. Now obviously we're going to discover more about Destiny 2 at E3, and hopefully that also includes the dates for its beta, but we already know that the game is going to have so much to offer us. There's going to be loads more activities such as treasure maps and adventures which will help you find lost sectors to help earn extra loot, as well as all your old school favorites like strikes and raids and the Crucible. But you'll also be able to set up your own clan within Destiny 2 to do all those activities with, and thanks to a brand new feature called Guided Games, you'll have the ability to team up with clans if you're a solo player to complete activities like the raid that you wouldn't otherwise have the chance to do so. But hopefully we'll get even more gameplay and learn even more about Destiny 2 come E3, so make sure to keep an eye out. One of the largest games of 2016 has got to be Battlefield 1, which has become one of my favorite large-scale first-person shooter games of all time. And at EA Play during E3, we'll also get to find out a load more about the brand new DLC for the game, In the Name of Tsar. Now, DICE have done a great job in keeping most of the details of the DLC incredibly hush-hush ahead of EA Play, but we do know that the DLC is going to bring new maps like Priestley to Her, which I don't think I can say properly, loads of new weapons and vehicles from the Russian army, which is going to be pretty exciting. And we also learned that the Women's Battalion of Death, who played a big part in the Russian army towards the end of World War I, will be represented by the Russian Scout class throughout the DLC, but we'll have to wait for EA Play on June 10th to find out more about the In the Name of Tsar DLC. While I focused on first-person shooters in this list, I have to give a shout out for one other action game with a love of ridiculous guns, Crackdown 3. This is about as far as you can get from a serious military shooter. It's about being a super-powered agent going to war with criminal scum in a futuristic city. This game isn't about precision, it's about pouring out as much lead as you possibly can. It has more in common with the big action films of the 80s than anything else. What I'm most intrigued with in this game is seeing how the multiplayer mode works. When we were shown the game at Gamescom in 2015, we saw a very early version of the game, where a team of friends were dropped into a destructible city. How destructible, you ask? Well, if you constantly fired a machine gun at a wall, it would gradually chip away at the stonework until you made a new window to shoot from. And if enough people chipped away at the base of a skyscraper, the whole thing would come down. It was one of the most amazing demos we've ever seen, and I can't wait to see what the team have in store for us at E3. But there we have it, some of the best shooters that you'll have to keep an eye out for during E3. Make sure to let us know in the comments which one you're most excited for. Hit the subscribe button if you're new, as we're going to have a load of exclusive gameplay from E3 right here on Xbox On. Drop a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye!